Our first speaker that I'd like to introduce is the President of the Canadian Labour Congress, Hassan Yussuff.
Thanks, Alex. First and foremost, sisters and brothers, let me thank all of you, of course, for making the time to be here. I want to start, of course, my remarks to the workers. I know how difficult this is. 262 days is not exactly a short time to being on strike. I know the challenges that you face, both in the personal and financial difficulties. And the fact is that you want to go back to work. And the only reason that you're not back to work is the unreasonable demands by this employer. I know that compromise can be reached and of course a collective agreement can be concluded, but it must be fair and just. Because the reality is you're not asking for the sky, you're simply asking for a fair settlement here. And by God, you deserve a fair settlement. You'll have our full support at the end of the day. You know, the tactic of this employer we have seen far too much across this country. And that is, of course, put you out on strike, make the concession so demanding that you only could say no, and then, of course, says you're being unreasonable. We know the union's not being unreasonable. And more importantly, I want you to know every time I come to this city, if you're still here, I will be here to join you on the picket line to send a clear message. We will be here one day longer to ensure you get a fair settlement. And the solidarity, of course, this community have shown is absolutely tremendous. I want to thank all the affiliate leaders and, of course, activists that are here that's showing their support here today. But more importantly, sisters and brothers, we're going to need to redouble our effort to ensure our members, our friends, our neighbors, everybody understand that any form, shape, or way, if they're getting this paper that's produced by scabs at their doorsteps, and of course they're using it, it's fundamentally undermine our solidarity to reach an end to the settlement at the end of the day. We need to send a message also to those companies that are still using these newspapers to print their scab bung, of course, flyers at the end of the day. Simply unacceptable. But this is going to be settled so long as we remain strong and united at the end of the day. And I'm delighted and, of course, honored to join you at your picket line. I'm hoping because your bargaining team is back at the table, it will lead to a conclusive settlement that is fair and equitable, because I know you want to go back to work, and more importantly, you want to reach a fair collective agreement. And you have our full support in the Canadian Labour Congress, of course, for your dispute. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Our next speaker, who needs no introduction, is Danny Cavanagh, the President of the Nova Scotia Federation of Labour.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everybody, for coming out, and thanks, Hassan, for being in town and coming out to the rally. I just want to say, you know, we just came through a Thanksgiving weekend where many of us give thanks. These workers have been out now for the 263 days. Their Thanksgiving weekend may not have been as good as the rest of us had over the weekend. But you know what? The Nova Scotia Federation of Labour and our 70,000 members in this province are going to stand solidly behind these workers at the Chronicle Herald, and we're going to make sure that at the end of the day they get a fair and just collective agreement. And that's why we're urging the Herald to get back to the table to make sure they negotiate in good faith so these workers get a kind of a collective agreement that they want and they deserve. We also have a message for all of us. I want to thank all the affiliates that continue to make donations to the striking Heralds, because we said from the start, and we're committed to it, these workers will not be starved out onto the streets, and we'll continue that support, and we'll continue to make donations, come around to the picket line, and do everything that we need to support these workers and ensure that our members end their subscriptions to the Chronicle Herald. We stop the flyer deliveries, and we help ramp up the pressure when we can at the secondary picketing locations that they have. And most importantly, the 70,000 members in this province will not shop at businesses that continue to advertise in the Chronicle Herald. Advertising in the Chronicle Herald, and stop dealing with the Chronicle Herald until they get back to the table and get a fair and just collective agreement. So with that, sisters and brothers, again, I want to thank everybody coming out today, and solidarity, and we'll see you on the picket line, and make sure those donations and support keep coming in for these workers so they can get the kind of collective agreement that they deserve. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Danny. Our next speaker is the President of the Halifax and Dartmouth District Labour Council, Suzanne MacNeil.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you all for being here today. Those who have came to support our brothers and sisters on the picket line with the Halifax Typographical Union. Thank you to those who have driven from far away, and then others who have flown. And I want to bring greetings on behalf of the 25,000 workers represented by the Halifax-Dartmouth and District Labour Council, including those in the Typographical Union. We make so many aspects of this city and our community's work. And I'm here today to say, you folks have been on strike for 263 days, not just because of your jobs, but because you're standing up for the paper of record that we deserve. Mark Lever is busy trying to run it into the ground. He's trying to make it something that isn't what you have worked hard all your lives to achieve. You've been working hard for good journalism and for us to be able to turn to a newspaper to get the news that we have come to know and trust in this region. And I want to give a shout out today. We're in the middle of a municipal election. There's a countdown to election day, and I want to give a shout out to the 19 and counting municipal candidates who have refused to provide content or give interviews to any of the Scout reporters at the Chronicle Herald. And I want to go further and saying you should not vote for anybody who has given an interview or provided content to the Chronicle Herald. You can see on a number of their websites which these candidates are. If you go to gabrielandshuga.ca, one of the candidates who has signed on to this statement, you can see the names. And there are a growing number of candidates who also are not from this point onward dealing with the Chronicle Herald. Some of them had said, oh my gosh, if I knew that this statement was coming out, I would have not provided the content that I had given them previously. So this number of candidates is definitely growing. And I also want to point out too that in the provincial by-election in Halifax-Needham, the NDP candidate, who is now our MLA there, did not give any interviews to the Chronicle Herald and won handily. And I want to commend Lisa Roberts and the NDP for their solidarity. But do you know what? It speaks very poorly of where this scab newspaper is at this time, in that a candidate doesn't need them to win. This is a real shame. We should be able to have our unionized journalists at the paper of record so that we can go to them and give interviews so that our message can get out there. And that is why I want to give a huge thanks to all of you for continuing your reporting at localexpress.ca, and huge thanks for continuing to do your reporting with integrity while you're in the middle of a pretty major strike. So I want to thank you for keeping on doing your job. I want to thank all the candidates who have thus far refused to deal with the scab paper. And I just want to say, let's keep the solidarity going. We're with you 100% of the way. I know it's been really, really tough, but we're behind you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Our next speaker, which I didn't tell him he would be speaking, would be the leader of the New Democratic Party here in Nova Scotia, Gary Burrill. You're on. Say a few words. Can you say a few words, Gary?
Maybe.
There you go.
Continuing on with what Suzanne has said, there are things for us in Nova Scotia to be proud of, and there are things for us to be ashamed of. I'm very proud to represent a political party that's standing now on the front porch of the next general provincial election, in which of course is under a great deal of pressure for us to lift our boycott of the scab version of the Herald, but which has decided that it doesn't matter if an election is called tomorrow and another election called the day after that and the third one called the day after that. In the Nova Scotia New Democratic Party, we will not be giving one interview, we will not be releasing one release, we will not be participating in any distribution of content with the scab version of the Herald. And at the same time, in Nova Scotia, there are things for us to be ashamed of. I'm ashamed that in our province, the Minister of Labour, Kelly Regan, if you look up her expenses from her constituency office, you find that in the course of this struggle, her constituency office has an invoice for $1,680 for the printing of the constituency newsletter payable to the printers of the Chronicle Herald. And the government of which she has a part is a part. It hasn't done any better. It's a bad thing that a strike of this length is continued and stretched out by scabvertisers. But it's a worse thing when one of the leading scabvertisers is the government of Nova Scotia. And so there are things for us to be proud of, and there are things for us to be ashamed of, but there are things for us to admire. Let me say, on behalf of the NDP in Nova Scotia, I admire the Halifax Typographical Union. I admire your courage, I admire your principles, I admire your tenacity, and I want to invite everyone who agrees with me here to say together on three, we're with you. 1, 2, 3. We're with you! We're with you! We're with you! We're with you! Solidarity, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I would ask Ingrid and Frank to come up here before I introduce them. Sisters and brothers, 263 days. This sister and this brother have been solidly behind the workers. They're part of the Chronicle Herald. They're part of the story that should be told by journalists with some integrity, not scabs, not a newspaper, certainly that doesn't value integrity and what's happening for a fair and just collective agreement here in the city of Halifax. This sister and brother have been out here day in and day out. They've stood strong along with all the sisters and brothers of the Chronicle Herald workers. I want us to give them a long and rousing thank you on behalf of the entire labour movement in Nova Scotia, to say thank you, we're with you, we will be with you. If it's 264 days and beyond, we're going to be here, we will be back. And for Mark Lever and Sarah Dennis to understand, and I hope this is recorded, we're not going anywhere. The labour movement has a long and proud history in the province, and we will be behind the workers here 100% going forward. I'd ask Frank and Ingrid to say a few words to us today. Frank?
Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful day. We would certainly like to express our appreciation to all the people who have stood beside us and with us in the last almost 9 months. Particularly all the unions who've donated money and come out and walked with us and been there for us since day one. You know, the Herald thinks that they can beat us down by being irrational and stubborn, but we too can be stubborn. And we're still here, and we're going to be here until we get something done.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, we'd like to thank everybody. It's been a humbling experience, to say the very least, for the support that we've had the last 9 months, and it's difficult to really express how grateful we are for the help that we've had. We never would have expected that we would be here this long. We knew it was going to be a fight, but we didn't think we would be here this long. On a bit of a positive note, there has been some back and forth between the lead negotiator and the VP of the Herald. So we're hopeful that maybe in the near future we will have a deal, and it will be a fair deal, and that all of our work together collectively has pushed the company to see that all we want is fairness for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we go, sisters and brothers, we need to send a message to the people inside this building, one that we're not going anywhere. We will be here, and it's about solidarity with our brothers and sisters with the Chronicle Herald. So, solidarity! So, solidarity! So, solidarity! So, solidarity!
So, solidarity.
Thank you, sisters and brothers, and have a great day.